Between La Rose and Lockport on the beautiful and historic Louisiana Highway 1, you'll reach Valentine, Louisiana. Interestingly enough, the story of Valentine actually begins further up the bayou in Napoleonville. A very prominent landowner up there had a daughter born on, surprise, Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1850. Being opportunistic and Creole, he named her Valentine Marie Triche. Valentine would grow up in Napoleonville, of course, until she married Joseph Badeau, who acquired a tract of land right outside of Lockport. He built a very large plantation home and began harvesting the sugar cane, and then he would name it the Valentine Plantation after his wife. So this means that the town established is not pronounced Valentine, but actually Valentine. The real Valentine would live until 1941. But the settlement briefly lost its name when Lee J. Foray acquired it from the Badeau family and renamed it the Lower Lafourche Planting and Manufacturing Company. The plantation kept the name, but the company didn't make references to Valentine at all. In 1928, after several changes in ownership, a man named Will Gibbons Jr. became company president and established the name Valentine Sugar, Inc. This would solidify the name of the community, and a heart was placed as the logo for the company. Valentine once had several businesses that occupied the area. One of those businesses was a general merchandise store that had gas and a place to eat. The cabins that once housed the plantation slaves were converted and expanded to become rental homes and then again to employee housing. This location would also play a particularly unique and satisfying role during World War II. Louisiana, as with other states, experienced a depletion of the workforce due to higher wages in the defense industries and the actual war itself. The USDA forecasted that the U.S. would need a little over 2 million agricultural workers by January of 1942. U.S. officials needed to solve this problem. Fortunately for everyone, by this time, the German forces in Tunisia had surrendered, and several 100,000 POWs were now on their way to Louisiana to work in the sugar fields. Of all 64 Louisiana parishes, 36 of them had at least one POW camp located within its geographic boundaries. If a parish needed labor but didn't have a camp in their boundaries, no worries, because the Germans would just be shipped wherever they were needed. Now, some people like to compare this event to slavery, which had existed less than 80 years ago at this point, keep in mind. Yet, these people always fail to mention that the Germans were somewhat protected under something called the Geneva Convention. Now, the Geneva Convention is something that was created, and it would be just the globally agreed upon guidelines for handling prisoners of war. That wasn't a thing during slavery. POWs could not be required to work any longer than the normal daily work hours of U.S. residents at the time, which was 10 hours in comparison to some plantations working their slaves to 14 plus hours a day during the cane season. These German POWs would stay throughout the war, and several testimonials I've come across say that whenever it was time for them to leave, none of them wanted to go home to Germany. Now, as much as I'd like to accept that the local residents were just so great that no one wanted to go home, it's more likely that these POWs knew what they would be going home to now that the war was over and their country was bombed to hell. There is some sort of irony in that a group of individuals that considered themselves to be the master race found themselves in the cane fields that slaves were laboring in half a century prior. A paper mill called Valentine Paper was started in 1954 by the sugar farmers who looked to profit by creating paper with the primary byproduct of the sugar cane called bagasse. Bagasse is the dry, kind of pulpery, fibrous material that's left over after crushing sugarcane stalks to extract their juice. It's used as a biofuel for the production of energy and building materials. However, their experiment to convert bagasse into paper was ultimately a failure, and the mill would close in 2007 after about a half a century in business due to saltwater encroachment up Bayou Lafourche. When it closed, local officials estimated that it contributed some $15 million annually to the local economy. Over the years, Valentine saw a sugar mill, a paper mill, chemical plant, POWs, all other businesses too come and go. But one constant for the past several decades has been this old ratchet pontoon bridge. You know what I'm talking about if you're passing through, but as of now, You can only cross the bayou in Valentine on the much more reliable swing bridge that bypasses Lockport. There are plans as of this recording to restore this old bridge to allow vehicle traffic. Subscribe to the channel and check out our website at louisianadread.com for more Louisiana history, horror, folklore, and culture. I'm Kyle Crosby, and this is Louisiana Dread Quick History.